The turning points in any business can be traced back to either hiring or firing key people. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, specifically who to hire and when, and how you can assemble the team that's going to allow you to scale your agency to 100K plus per month and beyond in revenue. If you don't know who I am, my name is Liam Casey. I've been an agency owner for over 4 years now, scaled my agency to high multi-six figures in annual profit. And I'm here to just share what I learned along the way so that you can scale quicker and avoid the mistakes that I made. Before we get into this one, if you want more valuable high-level agency content, please subscribe to the channel because there's going to be a lot more videos like this. So the reason that I'm making this video and this one is so important because one of the biggest mistakes that I make and one of the biggest mistakes I see so many other agency owners making is either taking way too long to hire for key roles in their agency or hiring the wrong people in the wrong order. And that is just one of the biggest things that holds you back from scaling your agency as quickly or as sustainably as you could be. You know, you're not going to hit the goals that you want to in your agency, whether it's 20K per month, 30K, 40, 50K, 100K, 200K, doing it on your own. Obviously, you need to assemble a team that's going to help you get there and in the right order so that you're not doing it in the wrong way. So when I started to figure this out and I got this right, this is what allowed me to go from, you know, on average 30 to 50K per month inconsistently into my agency and being really stressed and, you know, still being very involved in the day-to-day of my agency to going to 60, 70, 80 plus K per month, but with also a significant amount of freedom and me being able to spend time on a lot more of the things that I actually enjoy in the business and working on other projects that I enjoy, like this YouTube channel, like, you know, a mastermind for agency owners as well. So I'm just going to go through in order and rattle off the key hires that you need to make and in what order, and explain the roles and responsibilities of those roles and what you should expect to kind of hand off and the responsibilities yet you should give to those roles. So number one is a virtual assistant. So this is a very common one and a very broad role, but essentially what you want to do when you've kind of started, there's always that point where you're doing everything in the agency. You're doing your outreach, you're taking your sales calls, you're doing client fulfillment, you're speaking to clients, and you can only scale so far when you're doing absolutely everything. You don't want to be a glorified freelancer. You want to be a business owner and an agency owner. And so the most cost-effective role that you can hire for initially is a virtual assistant. And that's a very kind of broad, vague recommendation. But essentially what you want to do is you just want to do an audit of your time over, you know, over a typical working week and figure out where is your time actually going. And then once you've done an audit of your time, you just want to track all the tasks that you've done for every hour of the day within a full 5-day working week. And then look at what tasks did I do this week that I repeated, what tasks were low value in terms of how much they're contributing towards my goals, what tasks require a low level of skill that could be easily outsourced, and then figure out and then prioritize and figure out, okay, which of those tasks should I prioritize taking off my plate immediately? Often they're things like admin, often they're things like reporting, like, you know, basic client communication, and often a lot of outreach tasks as well. And that was the first thing that I took off my plate was manual outreach. And I brought on a virtual assistant to do pretty much organic outreach full time at scale, just to generate conversations and generate sales calls for my agency. So if you don't have a virtual assistant on the team yet, again, it's a very broad role, but that is the number one very first hire that I would recommend making. You on average, you pay a virtual assistant anywhere between $3 to $5 USD an hour. You can offload a lot of tasks over to them. You know, when I first brought on a virtual assistant, they took, you know, 20 to 30 hours per week off my plate of just manual time consuming repetitive tasks. And that is just a huge amount of leverage and a huge amount of time that you can claim back immediately. And you're not committing to a huge expense either. So next is a client success manager. And so this is a role that I wish that I hired for significantly sooner. And essentially your client success manager from a high level, their purpose is to make sure that your clients actually consume the full amount of value from your services. That's the way that you want to be thinking about a client success manager. They're really responsible for curating the experience that your client has while working with your agency. And they are one of the biggest things that will impact your client retention. And so the responsibilities that you want to be giving them is onboarding all of your new clients, conducting your onboarding calls, all client correspondence and communication, all the accountability associated with your service. So making sure that the client is doing the things that they need to do to win from your service, and then doing things like monthly strategy sessions and monthly ongoing check-in calls. And so, you know, that client relationship and that client communication is one of the biggest things that starts to drop off as you scale. If you're the bottleneck for that, or if your media buyer that's not really their core responsibility and they're just focusing on ads. There is a few different ways to do this in terms of having like a media buyer / client success manager hybrid role, and they've got less of a client capacity. But regardless, these responsibilities need to be taken over by someone else. Ideally, when you reach about a 12 to 18 client capacity, it makes sense to bring on this role. So that is the number 2 role that I would recommend hiring for, is a client success manager. So number 3 is your media buyer. So at this point, you've got, a virtual assistant doing the majority of your admin. They're doing outreach for you. They're generating sales calls. You're taking sales calls. You've got a client success manager that's speaking to clients. You're not speaking to clients. They're managing all the onboarding, the client communication, but you're still doing the ads and the implementation and the setup and the ongoing optimization. And so that is the next thing that you can take off your plate very, very easily. And there's a ton of good media buyers out there, especially for local business lead gen niches that can do all of the ongoing account management and optimization campaign launches for you for a very, very affordable price as well, so that you can still maintain profitability. They're going to be doing, all of the copywriting. They're going to be doing all of the creatives as well for your clients' ads, and that's going to take fulfillment completely off your plate. Once you've got someone doing the ads implementation, once you've got your client success manager speaking to clients, then that's all of your fulfillment taken care of. Obviously, this is oversimplifying, and there's lots of nuance that goes into making these roles work, but that's the structure in a nutshell. So next is your appointment setter. And so once you've gotten to this level of scale, when you've got a VA on board, a client success manager, and a media buyer, you've got a lot of capacity. One media buyer in a local business lead gen niche should be able to have around a 25 to 30 client capacity if all they're doing is the management of the campaigns and they're not actually speaking with clients and doing any client management. And so, you can scale to a really high level with a 25 to 30 client capacity. If you're charging $1,500 to $2,000 per month, you can be getting to 60 to 75K per month very, very comfortably just there. But where your bottleneck starts to arise is in your capacity for client acquisition. And so this is where it makes sense to start running paid ads. And one of the biggest strategies that makes paid ads work really well so that you can bring down your cost per call booked is having an appointment center that can outbound dial all of your leads coming into your funnel and booking those appointments for you. You can bring your cost per call book down to $80 to $120, which is where you need it to be if you want to be profitable early on from launching paid ads. And so your appointment setup, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be calling all of your new leads. They can be also taking all of your discovery calls that are already being booked from your outbound organic appointment setting. So they're taking all your discovery calls. They are qualifying all of your clients. They're qualifying all of your prospects. They are just doing all of the nurturing and follow-up of your entire sales pipeline just to book as many sales calls as possible. That's their entire job, is just book as many sales calls as possible. They'll also follow up and reschedule all of your no-showed appointments, which increases your overall show-up rate. And then they also do appointment confirmations where they confirm upcoming appointments throughout the week so that your show-up rate is increasing as well. So that appointment setting role is super, super valuable and just increases the efficiency of your entire agency and is just the foundation of starting to assemble your sales team and making paid ads work really, really well. Once you've got paid ads running at one appointment setter, they should easily be able to book anywhere between 60 to 80 sales calls per month. And that's minimum, and that's conservative. And so, obviously you as the founder, where you've got other responsibilities, there's no way that you have enough availability on your calendar to be taking anywhere close to 60 to 80 sales calls per month. And even if you could, you wouldn't be wanting to, because you don't want to be just like a glorified sales rep in your own agency. And it's just very draining, and you just don't have the mental bandwidth to be doing anything else in the business other than taking sales calls. And so the natural evolution is that you need to bring on an in-house closer and have a sales representative on your team that's doing all of your demo calls and conducting the strategy sessions and the demo calls to bring new clients on into your agency. And so that is the fifth role, is that closer. And once you've got all those roles assembled, you've got your VA, client success manager, you've got your appointment setter and your closer. Did I miss anything there? VA, client success manager, media buyer, appointment setter, closer. Then that is the kind of dream team for a 75 to 100K plus per month agency. And the great thing that about once you have those roles assembled is all of those core roles just duplicate within the agency as you scale to high levels. Once you start to scale to significantly high levels, like 250, 300K per month, then you start to need to assemble more leadership and executive roles that are more like operations managers or sales team managers once your teams grow. But those kind of core roles in the business, they just duplicate, and after going through the motions of finding those people, implementing them, having to build out all of the systems and processes to maintain those roles, you've gotten most of the way there to have the team structure in place to scale. And so it's a big milestone once you've gotten to that place in the agency. And also the great thing is that that's when you claim back a really high amount of freedom as a founder. And this is where I've gotten to in the agency. And it's just a great place to be, because it means that the agency can pretty much run itself. Obviously, you still have to be involved from a strategy standpoint, from an accountability standpoint, and just like practical standpoint, making sure that your team is doing what they need to do. But you have ridiculous amounts more freedom than when you don't have those roles in place. And that obviously allows you to either focus on other projects that you might want to, or just reallocate your time to more high income producing activities for the agency itself, which is obviously important. That's what we want to be doing. So lastly, just some of the problems that you will face as you're trying to assemble this team are as follows. So number one is finding good people. So talent acquisition is always a huge bottleneck, and it's something that people underestimate as they're scaling their agency, or any business for that matter. Is like, where do you find these good people? Where do you find a good closer? Where do you find a good media buyer? Where do you find a good client success manager? I'm not going to be going into detail of like how we solve these problems, but these are just things to be aware of and things to start looking into, so that you know what the challenges and the bottlenecks are going to be when you start assembling this team. So next is keeping good people. So you need to have good systems in place, good culture in place, and a good business structure, so that you're actually keeping good people on your team. Because it's one thing finding them and attracting them, and then it's one thing to actually keep them happy and keep them incentivized to be on your team. Next is profitability. And so, once you start to assemble and grow your team, if you don't have your financial operations dialed in, if your pricing isn't right, if your client retention isn't right, then if your cost to acquire clients isn't right, then your profitability can significantly diminish if you're not compensating your roles correctly and you don't have the financial operations of the business operating where it needs to be. So that's another thing that you have to pay very close attention to. Next is operations and project management. So your operations, your systems and processes, and your project management looks very different as your team starts to grow. You need higher standards for project management tools that you're using. You need to improve the just overall systems and processes in the business. And so you need to develop skills around leading a team, around having good just operations in general in your company. And that's something that you don't have to think about at a smaller level of scale. And when you've got a smaller team, that's pretty obvious. And then lastly is just building a good culture. Once you're starting to lead a team and you're starting to, obviously have more people within your company, you need to start to develop a culture where people enjoy, where you have a shared vision and people enjoy being a part of the team and working towards the same goals as you. And so those kind of core things are the things that you need to be thinking about as you're assembling this team. How are you going to find these people? How are you going to retain them? How are you going to maintain profitable? How are you going to improve your project management and operations to make everything run smoothly? And then how are you going to build the culture so that your team enjoys and is motivated to create and achieve the goals that you want for the company as well? And that's it. So I hope that provided some value to you. I hope that gave you some clarity around what you need to work towards to build the team that's going to get your agency to the next level. So if you did get some value from this, please give this video a like. That's all I ask. And also comment below if you have any questions. I know videos like these can often give you a lot of clarity, but can also raise a lot of questions. Please drop your questions below in the comments. I'm going to be reading every single one of them. It will be, I'll make future videos to answer your questions. And I might also answer those questions in a live training inside of our private Facebook community for agency owners. And of course, as well, subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. That's all. Thank you.